So I feel once you have your gift wrapped, the most important thing is to have a beautiful bow tied onto your box. So if you are going to use ribbon, I'll show you several different ways. And the first way is just the perfect bow. I have my ribbon already cut. I'm actually recycling this ribbon. I recycle all my ribbon. And just to give you somewhat of a measurement idea of how much you will need, I'll be wrapping the bow the lengthwise. So I've measured it out to be almost 4 of the widths wide, and that will give me a really nice fluffy bow. So I'll measure that to the half mark and we'll place that behind the box. Line it up. So this is the trick. Whether you go one side or the other, left or right-handed, it doesn't matter. Once you tie your first knot, you'll notice if you just let your ribbon hang and lay down, if you're looking at it from one direction, you'll have a top or a bottom, or if you're looking at it the other way, this would be the top and that would be the bottom. But since it's facing me, this will be my top and this is my bottom. And it could go the other direction, it doesn't matter, but you can just see the natural top and bottom. So I'm going to make my first loop with the bottom, and you can make a loop and then snug it up as you go. So there's the loop. I'm pressing that down with a finger, and then this top ribbon, it goes over the top of the loop, because if you go underneath the loop, you're going to have a crooked bow, and I'll show you the difference here in a second. So here we are, we're going over the top, and then I'm going to take this strand, and you can see I have almost a hole here. I'll show it to you, show it to the camera. There's almost a hole between where I'm holding the ribbon onto the box and then underneath my top loop. You'll just slide that ribbon right between those two places. Grab it with your other hand, and then you'll just gently pull it, and then you'll pull it back and forth to get it to be looking perfect. I'm going to pull this apart and show you the other direction and then do it one more time. So there you can see how it's lying very straight and perfect. One end's a little bit longer, I would trim that, but let's do it the other way. Okay, so here's the top and here's the bottom. I'll go ahead and loop my bottom, and then rather than going up over the top, I'll go the other direction. I am sliding it basically into the same spot, and you can see I'm not used to doing it this way. And I tie it, and there you go. This is how the not so perfect bow looks. Of course, you can straighten that up. You can actually try to turn it, but it really doesn't want to turn. I will tell you, there are cases when I'm wrapping a box and the box just really wants the bow to go the other direction, so I would wrap it opposite for that way. But in this case, I really want the bow to go the direction of the box. So here we go, one more time. Looping the bottom, taking the top over the top, and I think that right there is the trick. The top always goes over the top. Luckily, this ribbon is also two-sided, so that helps. I'm going to tuck it between my knot on the base and then my loop on the top. Slide that through. It takes a little bit of, you have to get a little coordinated with your fingers. And you can see it doesn't look great when I first tie it, but all you have to do is just adjust it and straighten it up, kind of bring it back and forth. I generally would say that you wouldn't want your ribbon to go too far over the box. You want it to be, in this case, almost as wide of the box. So you have to eyeball how big you want your loops to be, depending on the size of the box. In this case, I want it to be pretty big. Okay, so you can see this one does overlap a little bit further. So I'll simply fold that in half again. I'll take my scissors and we'll just cut it at an angle. And there is what you have that I call a perfect bow. For this box, I have a ribbon that's not quite long enough. And again, this is a recycled ribbon and I love it with this wrap. So it's not quite long enough to do a bow, so I want to do a knot. And I'm going to show you exactly how to tie a perfect knot, a straight knot, rather than a crooked knot. We'll show you both directions. So just like the bow, we have the bottom and we have the top. And if you want the knot to sit straight, same thing. You'll make sure the top goes over the top like this, and then you'll just pull it straight. And what that does is it creates this really pretty little band that goes over the top. I'm going to show you how it looks when you do it the opposite way, just so you can see it, and then we'll do it one more time. So here we go. This is a wired ribbon, so it's a little trickier to get out. So here's the bottom and here's the top, and instead of going over the top, I'm going to actually go the other direction. And there you can see, sometimes you might want that. You might want it to go the opposite, and that's how you would do that. So there's that direction, and then I'm gonna go back the other way. We have the top, we have the bottom. Sometimes I like to tighten it and just kind of keep my finger on that. And then I'm gonna flip that bottom piece over and make the top go straight over the top. And then carefully tighten it. I actually am going to tuck some things inside of this, so I don't want this quite so tight. I'm gonna loosen it up. Okay, as I tighten this up, I'm thinking that I want to tuck something into this knot, so I don't want it really super tight. Then I'll do the same thing where I'm going to fold this in half, and I'll go the direction of the edges to the center to make a nice little point. I'll do that on both sides. Edge to the center. And here you can see my finished knot. For this box, I'm going to show you how to do a Tiffany style bow. And if you want to know what that means, a Tiffany style bow is what I call it when there is ribbon going both directions wrapping around the box, but it has a flat bottom and then a bow on top. A lot of times you'll see this done, but you'll twist the bottom, and what happens there is the box won't sit flat. So this nice flat bottom is the style that Tiffany company does it, and so that's why we call it the Tiffany style bow. So for this, I need a lot of ribbon. I have this beautiful silk ribbon, and I will measure 1, 2, and I'm going all the way down to the table, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And just so I don't have this roll hanging around and getting in the way, I'll move it. All right, so then I don't need to find the bottom, the middle in this case. I'll go ahead and say about 1.5, and I will place that spot right in the middle. Then, this is a bigger box, so it's a little trickier. Wrap it around, all the way around, and back up to the top. And then I'll fold this over and go the other direction. And you can see it's coming back up to the top, and what you'll want to do is tuck that right around this ribbon here so that you have your ribbon coming out the sides. There's one going onto the bottom and one going the direction of the top. And you remember the top and bottom thing that I showed you in the perfect bow? Go ahead and loop the bottom, wrap that over the top, and slide that through right between your knot and your loop. And then pull it tight. I want a nice big bow on this. I want it to go all the way to the edges. And I have quite a bit extra left over. I'd rather have too much than too little. So we'll go ahead and do my pretty little pointed ends here. And I want those ends also to go right to the edge so that it fills up the box. And there you go. There is a beautiful Tiffany style bow, and I'll show you a couple others. This one here is made with this grosgrain ribbon that I showed you before, and this one I actually did a Tiffany style bow, but rather than doing it into a bow because I didn't have enough ribbon, I just tied it into a knot, and I tied it the opposite direction so that my little ends would go crosswise. So you can see how you can vary that up a bit. But once you know the basic theory of top over top or top under the top, depending on which way you want to go, you can tie any style of bow or knot that you would like. So when you're tying up your packages, you can use beautiful ribbons, you can use all kinds of things. And in this case, I think I'm going to show you how you can use yarn and some twine. So this is really quite easy, and it all goes together when you see what I'm going to top it with. So I have this really pretty lavender yarn that I pulled out of my stash. I'm not a knitter, but I do love yarn. And I will start at the top of this box. I just love how it looks with the copper. Hold it with one finger, and I'm gonna wrap it 3, 4, maybe 5 times just to give it some bulk. And it doesn't need to be flat on top of each other. I actually like that it's a bit uneven. You do wanna keep it pretty much in the middle so that it doesn't slide off the side. I'll give myself, I don't know, let's say 4 inches, and then tie that off. If you really want to keep it secure, you can loop that underneath the whole bundle and just tie that so that it keeps nice and tight at the top. And then we're actually going to add a yarn topper on that next. You can move it around if you want to. Again, I like it spread out just a bit. Not quite so perfect and straight, but a little bit messy. So that's one way to use yarn. And then to use twine, we're gonna do the same thing pretty much, but I have 3 different colors. Unfortunately, I can't cover these in, so they just need to be taped really well. But since I can only go the other direction, I'll go ahead and gather all 3 of them together, and I'm going to just pull myself, I would call that about 2 feet, and then trim. Then I'll hold 3, 4, 6 inches and just wrap it around and then tie it off. And again, I'm going to show you how we're going to top this one with something really interesting as well. You can tie that in a bow if you want to, or just a knot. In this case, I think I will tie it a bow. And like I was telling you before, this is where I would want to do the crooked bow, because I want my strands to go one direction, but I want my bow to go the other direction. So instead of top over top, you would go top underneath the other. There you go. And now these are ready for toppers. The next bow that I'm going to show you is actually one of my favorites because it's a paper bow. So what I have here are some bows cut out, and you can find patterns for these. We have all types of different varieties. You can cut them as large or as small as you want to. And I've cut these out on my cutting machine. So I have my package wrapped, and the first thing I want to do is cut just a strip of paper that is about the same width as the width of the bow. And I'll want to tie this around the top. I'll make my top, look at that, it's actually really perfect. I didn't even plan that. But I want to make sure that when I add this bow on top, it doesn't look like there's a big clunk. So I'm actually going to trim it out. And you can see why. So I'll use this as kind of a guide. See how it gets thin? I'll do the same thing here. I'm just going to curve it to get thin, as if it's a real bow and it's come together at a knot in the center. Now you can go ahead and tape this on, but in this case, I'm going to use these tacky glue dots. I'm starting to love these things because they really do stick. So I'll use these glue dots. They're easy to use. You can actually pull them off one by one and then peel each paper on its own. I'll place one on each end. One of the tricks when I'm just adding one band of ribbon versus 2 is I always wrap the band around the edges that are folded down. It just helps keep those nice and tight. Really tightly. You have to make sure you have it on, because once it's down, it won't come off. Now we're going to make the bow. So in this case, these little tackies are too wide, so I'm going to actually cut them in half. Peel the backer off and place it right on the edge here. And I'm actually going to fold that down. And you can see how I'm positioning this. The only problem with these is the little plastics get everywhere. In this case, I'm gonna actually cut them into quarters. I think the half wasn't enough. Position it right on the tip. And then line it right up to that. These plastics are really clingy. Kind of like my dog. You can also use a hot glue gun. I thought it was fun to show it a different way today, so I'm not using the hot glue gun, but that's my normal go-to, although I'm really loving these. Okay, there's the bow. Now I'm going to put the ribbon onto the bow. And this will be my top and this will be my base. And the reason is because when we have the overlaps, it just looks better, where this is a little bit more clunky. So I'll place that on the bottom and I'll wrap the top of the bow all the way around and then tuck it under. Open that up and then we'll place one more of these. I have a half here. That will work. Onto the back of the ribbon. And everything will stay into place. And then I'm going to use a whole dot onto the back. And then center that right onto the gift. And now it's ready for a little extra piece that I'm going to add at the end to make this look like Christmas, even though I'm using polka dots and pink. Another fun way to be creative with your tying off your packages is to use different colors of washi tape. And for this one, I have kind of a coral color, a pink stripe, and then a glitter gold. And this is a very soft gold gift wrap. I'm going to start with the glitter gold, and we'll see if we can find the end. And I want the end to be on the back, so I'll turn this over. And this is a perfect way to tape off these seams as well. And the most important thing is that you just keep it straight. So I'm going to pull it down all the way to the bottom before I actually lay it down, so I can line that up with my eye there. And then we're going to go back to the back. Washi tape is really easy to tear with your fingers, and it's just so much fun to work with. I love using washi tape for gifts for kids. And then I'm going to use the pink on one side. Same thing, I'll start on the back. And in this case, I'm overlapping just a bit on the back because the top is just a bit wider than the back. And I'm overlapping the pink with the gold just to give it an extra texture. This is so much fun. If you wondered what to do with that stash of washi tape, this is it. And we have quite the stash. And then the third one will be this really pretty coral polka dot. Same thing, I'll turn it over, start on the back. The nice thing about it, you can always pull it off. It's not super permanent. There we go. I don't want to cover, I'll go back and fix the back, but for right now, I don't want to overlap the gold. So there we go. And what I will do here is I'm going to pull this off and reposition it. So I'll finish this side. And then I can line that up a bit better. Press it down, and then this is ready for a topper.